On today's show, we're interviewing the former president and the co-founder of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company. In August of 1983, Gerald W. Blakely, who owned and managed the hotel, sold the Ritz-Carlton Boston and the U.S. trademark for $75.5
million
to William B. Johnson, who was once the largest owner of the Waffle House franchises.
Oh, yeah!
William Johnson also owned Holiday Inns and Marriotts.
Everybody go hotel.
Then William decided to assemble a four-person dream team in Atlanta to lead the company headed by none other than today's guest, Horst Schulze, to create the Ritz-Carlton Hotel brand and to establish the Ritz-Carlton chain of hotels. Schulze dramatically revolutionized the hotel industry while turning the Ritz-Carlton into one of the most remarkable and recognized international brands on the planet. Horst's obsession with providing world-class customer service has set the standard for excellence in the hotel industry for over 30 years. Under his leadership, Ritz-Carlton won the prestigious Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award in 1992. Only one other company has ever won the award more than once, and the Ritz-Carlton is the only company in the hotel industry to actually win this award. Today, Horst is the best-selling author of the book Excellence Wins, a no-nonsense guide to becoming the best in a world of compromise. Chup, we don't have any more time to Horst around. And this intro is making me Horst. So let's hear it straight from the Horst's mouth.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrivetime Show.
3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to
Thrive Nation, I could not be more excited to interview today's guest. His name is Horst Schulze, and I'm sure you're familiar with the company that he co-founded and the company that he was once the former president of. The company is called Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company. Horst Schulze, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
I'm great and delighted to be here.
Sir, the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company has set so many benchmarks for excellence in customer service. Your name has been publicized, and people know you for the success you achieved. But could you start off at the bottom and share with us where you're from and kind of your background before becoming the king of hotels?
Well, king is good. Well, I'm actually not a king at all. I come from a very small background, a small village in Germany. I lived there in the village till I was 14, and then I left and worked in a hotel. I had begged my parents to work in a hotel, which was very unpopular at the time, but they found the best job they could find, the finest hotel, which unfortunately was about 100 kilometers away from home. So I left there, lived there in a dorm room with other kids, starting to work as a busboy. That meant everything at the time: cleaning, washing dishes, etc., helping for 3.5 years. Worked in the kitchen, worked in a restaurant, worked in the housekeeping, and so on. And after that, I left and worked in I'm not exaggerating, the finest hotels in Europe, in Paris, in Switzerland, called American Line, Germany, England. And after that, I came to the U.S. in 1964. San Francisco, working in the Hilton private club and so on. Ended up with Hyatt, and worked for 10 years in Hyatt. Started as a director of food and beverage operations, director of rooms, general manager, vice president, regional vice president, corporate vice president, and then I was offered to start a job to start a new hotel company. 2 hotels were in construction, both in Atlanta, and so the headquarters was in Atlanta. They were developers and financial people, I needed somebody to run this new company in the hotel business. They wanted to create their own brand. With the promise, they made me the promise that we could go top end. And so I left SAID at the time, my great company, Hyatt, and moved to Atlanta and started a new hotel company. A year later, we opened our first hotel, and that became Ritz-Carlton, and that's the story.
Wow, that is a lot. That is a lot. You just flew through an incredible career. Let me reset here. Age 14. You just said that at age 14 you started working. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, correct. Well, it's not an untypical German way of getting into a profession. You work in that profession, and once a week you go to a school relative to that profession. That's what I did. That's a typical trade career in Germany.
I saw a talk that you gave on YouTube. By the way, I've been watching way too many of your videos, so I apologize for cyber stalking you so much. But I watched you deliver a talk, and my kids had a cheerleading event in Kansas City. And so the way cheerleading events go is your kids perform for about 3 minutes, and then the rest of the weekend you're kind of hanging out at this arena. And so I went back to the hotel while I was waiting for them to perform, and I watched your videos. And one of the things that you said, and I had to play it back over and over and over, is you were comparing your commitment to having excellence at work in work with your commitment to staying married, if I'm getting that correct.
Yeah.
Could you please explain the parallels between committing to bring excellence and committing to stay married?
Well, it's all. I believe that everything we do is a decision that we make, not a pipe dream, a clear decision. I made in marriage. I made a clear decision when I got married. I will be in love with that woman for the rest of my life. Not just love her, but be in love. And I can tell you unequivocally, I'm married 40 years and I'm totally in love with that woman. But it takes work. It's not different than when you take a job, you make a decision to be excellent in that job or whatever it is in life. Those are decisions. I can either just go to work or go to work to create excellence. I always say I go to work for 2 reasons. One is to create excellence in what I'm doing. 2 is to be with my friends. If they like it or not, they're my friends. If I have that attitude, I enjoy going there and I create something. Why waste the 8 hours, whatever we are at work now? In a leadership position, it's much more than 8 hours. But if it is the 8 hours, why waste it and just do function rather than whatever the function is, create excellence. Be it dishwashing or whatever it is. Create excellence in that. But how does it come about? Well, it's a decision. A decision on which you work, on which you remind yourself of all the time. And it is not different with anything else.
Horst, I don't want you to throw anything at me over the phone here, and I'm not. I'm not that Satan needs an advocate, but I'm going to be the devil's advocate because I grew up really poor. I didn't start working when I was 14, but really 16 is when I started my first thing. And I am not a stranger of the 60-hour, the 70-hour work week. I'm not afraid to get to work at 4 or 5 or whatever. But I'm also going to take care of my body and get sleep. And also, I have 5 kids, and I've been married 18 years. So many people I see, they say, well, the reason why I didn't get to work on time is I just didn't feel like it. And so they have. So talk to me about your mindset of committing to excellence versus other people saying, I just don't feel like it.
Yeah, but it's not different. I have a friends a couple of years ago, a few years ago, they're good friends, and they're getting divorced. I mean, of course, when friends get divorced, it is a total friends and everybody gets divorced. It's very impactful. And when I had to sit down, I didn't understand. They were two beautiful people, good-looking people, friendly people, warm people, honorable people. So I had to sit down with them and I asked them for lunch and said, why we don't feel like it? What? You're waiting for feeling. I rather make a decision what my feeling is, rather than make a feeling make my decisions.
Well, that's good. Can you repeat that again, sir? That was great.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying I really rather make the decision what I feel rather than have the feeling decide what I do, who I am, etc. This is so unreasonable to even allow that to happen. You make a decision, and then you have to fight the decision. You have to fight against the feelings that try to interfere with your decision. But it has to be still your decision. And at the end, the feeling is your decision, and not that your decision is driven by your feelings.
That right there is a knowledge nugget that somebody needs to write down. We need to put that on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Many people today should consider getting a tattoo. If you're going to get a tattoo, get that as a tattoo. Now, I want to ask you this because you worked very hard from age 14. You worked your way up at Hyatt. And then my understanding is that Gerald W. Blakely, he owned the one individual Ritz-Carlton in Boston. And he sold the trademark and the brand to William B. Johnson, who I believe was the largest owner of the Waffle House franchises. Am I correct?
Yeah, he owned about 150 Waffle Houses and office buildings, but incidentally, he also owned Marriott hotels and managed by Marriott and Holiday Inns. When he built two hotels, which were supposed to become Holiday Inns, he could not come to agreement at the time with Holiday Inn as to the fees, etc., etc. When somebody recommended him to start his own hotel company, his own brand, that put him on the search where I came in and was hired. We then said, when we were here, we acquired a name. I forgot what name. We had a couple of names that we acquired, but we said it would be great to have an existing name, and that already makes sense, where people know it is a hotel. And we pursued two hotels, one hotel in San Francisco, the Mark Hopkins Hotel, and another one. And he came back and said, well, there's also the Ritz in Boston. We didn't like that because it was a terrible hotel. It was terribly dilapidated. It was only for monthly renters. All people lived there, no air conditioning and so on. But the Mark Hopkins fell through, so he purchased because it was a great location. And frankly, the name was, everybody knew that Ritz-Carlton meant hotel, even though it was not a good name anymore in the luxury area. We purchased it, we closed it for renovation. In the meantime, we adopted the name now. In the meantime, we opened our first hotel, which was the Ritz-Carlton here in Buckhead in Atlanta. And then a year later, we reopened Boston. But that's how we acquired the name. Frankly, against the wishes of the operators and of the people around me.
Wow.
Because it was so dilapidated, that hotel. And, of course, the Mark Hopkins in San Francisco at the time probably had a better name at that time. But the rest is history.
Why did they choose you? Why did they choose you to do that?
Somebody recommended me, and they kept on calling me.
Who recommended you? Was it your mother? Was it your wife? Who recommended you?
No. They hired a headhunter who inquired, and there was a guy that worked with Johnson. Johnson was the guy who was running the overall, who I had worked for before. So he got a few recommendations, and the name the guy that worked for before is Colgate Holmes, who was a hotelier, and I had worked for him in Chicago for a while. So an outstanding man, and he recommended me that I run this company, and etc. So several other recommendations came out, and they pursued me.
I have a question for you about this.
Yeah.
I have a theory, and I'd like to see if you could disprove or prove my theory here. As we've interviewed Lee Cockrell, who used to manage Walt Disney World Resorts. They had 40,000 employees working in Orlando, 1 million customers a week. At your peak, how many hotels were you managing at the peak of Ritz-Carlton before you decided to move on?
Just over 50.
Okay, so you're managing a large staff of people, and I've noticed that when you're around these top people, Michael Levine, the top PR guy for Michael Jackson or Prince or Nike, you all, when you walk by a piece of trash, pick it up.
Yes.
But nobody. I have three things I've observed. You pick up trash, even if it's not your building, even if it's not your trash, you pick it up.
Yes.
Second observation, I want to put this on the show notes, Andrew, because I'm gonna grill Horst on all these. Second is that you don't want to be late. You hate being late. Top performers hate to be late. And third, you are working as unto the Lord and not as unto men. Therefore, headhunters are always pursuing you guys because whatever standard that your boss sets is always the minimum standard in your minds. So let's get into the trash thing. What's going on with the trash thing?
That is funny that you observed that. That is so true. It's
Yes.
so true. I do this. I clean bathrooms. I'm in a plane. And I notice it myself. And I
Yes.
stop it. I can't help it. When things are not right, they have to be corrected. That's that simple.
Oof.
That sometimes is very negative. And in fact, my wife, Nelly, doesn't like to go out with me because I always have to correct something. But in my opinion, it should be corrected in order to be right. I can't help that, and I guess that is part of the motivation where that comes from. And not wanting to be right in discussion is simply that's not how you learn. You learn only by input. And if you just think you're right, you don't learn. You're not learning anymore.
Right.
That's the thing. How do you improve? By eliminating your defect, by keep on learning. And if you don't continuously improve, you're going to lose. Somebody's going to bypass you. Somebody's going to be much better. You have to continuously learn.
I won't throw this guy under the bus, but it's a very funny situation. He came to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where we have a 20,000 square foot facility where we host our in-person workshops, which, by the way, if you ever want to come present, I know the Thrive audience would love you. We have about 500,000 folks that download the podcast every month, and we have a lot of our guests who attend. But I picked them up at the airport, and it was in Tulsa when it snows. Paul, you know how it gets. When it snows in Tulsa, it immediately melts. So it's a weird slushiness.
Mm-hmm.
So the inside of my car, I had just had it detailed. I'm picking him up in my Hummer, Horst. I'm picking him up. I'm driving him back from the airport. And he looks at me with this weird look, and he says, "Hey, are we going to get this thing washed?" And I said, "Well, yeah, we could get it washed." I mean, it had just snowed, and he was serious. He goes, "We need to get it washed," because it was a white Hummer. I hadn't auto-wrapped it yet. He goes, we need to pull over. Like it was an emergency, almost like I had to go to the bathroom really bad. He goes, can we please pull over? And I thought at first he's kidding. So we go out for sushi with my partner, Dr. Zellner, and this guy turns to Dr. Zellner and says, have you? I went up and got to the bathroom, but I could overhear him talking, and he's like, "Have you seen how dirty the outside of that guy's Hummer is?" And so it was it bothers top performers. And I want to tap into this next question: being late. I've never talked to you before, but I know that you hate it when people are late. Why do you hate it when you or anybody else is late?
Oh, somebody must have talked to you about me. That's right. I mean, it is so insulting to be late. But think, you go into a meeting, there's 30 people, and you're a minute late. What does that mean? It's a half an hour. You just wasted a half an hour, people, which is totally outrageous. What right do you have to take that away from the people that you're dealing with? If it is 1 minute or 30, it doesn't make a difference. It is just wrong. By the way, if I had a meeting at 3 o'clock, I would lock the door a minute after 3. If I would have meant a minute after
Wait a minute.
I would have said it.
You locked the door?
I'm not lying. I meant 3 o'clock.
Would you lock the door? Would you literally do this? Would you actually lock the door?
You better believe it, yes.
Yes, listen.
Love it.
There's one listener out there. I want to send this to him. I can't do it. I had a former partner back in the day, and I had majority stock in the business, and I said, if you are late, I'm locking the door. And when I started locking the door, he could not handle it, and that's what broke up the partnership. I took over, and things went well. So that right there, being late, you can't. Horst, I don't believe it's possible to become the head of anything if you don't pick up trash when you walk by it, and if you're chronically late. Do you disagree with that?
Listen, if you would, you're not lying. If you agreed 3 o'clock or 2 or whatever time it is, why would you say that if you don't mean it? I'm not lying. If I would have meant 3 minutes after 3, I would have said so. I meant 3 o'clock.
That is powerful. Now, this next idea, I'm not sure, were you raised in a Christian background, or is it more of a secular world? What's your religious background?
No, well, institutional Christians, if you will. We were Lutherans. We were pretty. But in what today I would. I don't want to scare people.
Sure, no.
People get scared when they heard. I call myself a born-again Christian.
Yeah.
Means I have accepted that Christ is higher than I am, and accepting him to be my leader, and anything else for me is arrogant.
Well, I want to ask you this because there is a Bible verse that speaks about this concept called work as unto the Lord. And I didn't figure this out till I was about 19 years old. I was working at Target, and my boss, Horst, told me, Clay, somebody is eating all of the pretzels. And of course, I was eating all the pretzels. I'm like, I don't know who it is. Like, well, it has to be you or someone on the shift because someone's eating all the pretzels. Well, long story short, I was always late. I was always eating all the pretzels. I was always getting all the criticism. I was always being quote unquote micromanaged. Then someone introduced me to the book Think and Grow Rich, which is not in the Bible, but it's written by Napoleon Hill. And I decided to name my son, by the way, after Napoleon Hill. His name is Aubrey Napoleon Hill Clark. And after reading that book, I started getting into this crazy book called the Bible. And there's a verse, Colossians 3:23, where it reads, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for Ritz-Carlton customers. Work as unto the Lord, not as for shareholders. Work as unto the Lord, not as unto your manager, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving." So I want to ask you, where do you get that? Where did you get that idea to take customer service to the next level and to revolutionize the hospitality industry?
Well, in my story, I will tell about that maitre d' who impacted me greatly, who said, "Don't come to work, come to work for excellence." But then go on and being a Christian, Jesus said, "Love your neighbor as yourself." Why would you not think that your guest or your employees are your neighbors? My goodness, what an amazing thing! Love your neighbor. So what an amazing! Who can say something like that but Christ, in my opinion? And so that had very much impact on me. But if you read my book, you will also see I tell a story about that by another Christian believer, and that is Saint Benedict. Saint Benedict in the year 500. Wrote to his ministries, to his monasteries, and said, when a guest arrived, at that time travelers stopped in monasteries for shelter. When a guest arrived, receive him, and women did not travel alone, receive him as if it was Christ himself. And not only that, if you're on a fast, break your fast and have dinner with them so that they're not alone. But first, wash their feet. Now, if that is hospitality, I cannot come close to that. But that's the goal, to be as close as possible, to care that much. It's caring. I mean, everything Christ did was the greatest thing of all is love. My goodness, you mean only for some people? No, love is the greatest thing. Why wouldn't you love your guest? Why wouldn't you love your employees?
In your book, which, by the way, Excellence Wins, is a great read. It's a no-nonsense guide to becoming the best in a world of compromise. You talk about these you write about. I felt like you were talking to me because I've watched your YouTube videos, so I'm reading it. It feels like you're talking to me. I apologize for that, by the way. But in your book, you talk about these 4 supreme objectives. Objective number 1, you write, is to keep the customer. What does that mean?
Well, I'm looking at what is a great company. A great company makes every effort to keep the customers that they have. That means they have to say, what is it that I have to do to keep these customers? What is it? Well, what you have to do is give that customer what the customer wants. That means they have to get in their head and understand what they want, what they really want, not what your mother-in-law told you or somebody sat beside you in a plane or your neighbor. No, what your market tells you they want. That's what you give them. Number 1, that's what a company does. Number 2, you find new ones. Number 3, You get as much money from the customer as you can. But wait a minute. If not at the cost of losing the customer, that means you have to give him value. You have to give him value for everything you charge. And the fact is, a guest that is loyal, that means you don't lose your customer. That's a loyal guest. That guest wants to deal with you and buy other things that you produce, because loyalty means nothing else but they have developed trust in you. So they trust you to become loyal. And so every effort has to be sure you make sure that they don't lose them so that they're loyal. Number 2, you find new ones. Number 3, you get them, as I say, you charge and you sell. Number 4, you work efficiently. That's a great company. But the key element here, and nothing can interfere in it, is make sure the customer wants to come back and is loyal. Again, loyalty is nothing else but to develop trust in what you're doing.
I want to tap into your brain on this, because you said something there that I don't think the listeners quite understand what you're saying. You are talking about keep the customer. And there is a guest we're going to have on the show here. He's the best-selling author, John Ruhlin. And he stayed in one of your hotels, one of the Ritz-Carltons. And he was having a guest of honor stay in the hotel, and he was going to meet him. And he found out that his favorite guest was this is a guy he's really trying to impress. He found out that his friend and his guest of honor was a fan of a certain clothing line. And this is kind of when he had a startup, just a baby business called Giftology. So what he did was he went into a department store and bought all of the clothes in that guy's size, the entire line, the entire season's line. He said he spent $10,000 on clothes for this guy to impress this guy when he didn't have a whole lot of money. And he goes to the Ritz and he said, "Could you guys help me display it like a retail store? Like a department store?" Yeah. And he said, the Ritz bellman said, "Sure. Can you talk to me about the limits to which you would allow your team to go, and how's too far to go to keep the customer?"
Well, it's a very clear limit, we said. Every employee, every single employee, it doesn't matter who that is, has the right to spend up to $2,000 to make sure the guest becomes loyal.
Up to $2,000?
That's correct. It's some people and some business people out there will be shocked, but believe me, it was a business decision. And the decision very simply happened. We made an analysis with word analysis study, what the guest really wants from us and what they mean when they say they feel at home. And as it turns out, they didn't want to feel at home. They wanted to feel like they, in their subconscious memory, they remember their mother's home, where everything was done for him. And here's the big piece that came to it. And when something went wrong, for example, in that moment, they went to their mom and said, "Mom, I don't feel good. This is something terrible happened." Mom would take them in the arm and said, "I'm here for you. What can I do?" Mom never said, "I call the manager." What you do when you hear a complaint. When we learned that, we realized, oh my goodness, we don't make a decision. That customer that has a problem, for example, or in this case he needed just help, that guest, all they want is to be respected, to be heard, to be taken care of, not waiting for a manager. They want to get rid of their frustration. So we taught everybody to be empowered, everybody, truly empowered, to move heaven and earth. Everyone is responsible to keep the guest. That's everybody's responsibility. Not just checking somebody in, but by the way they check somebody in, convince the guest to want to come back. Everybody is responsible. Everybody. And for that, you have to empower people, because sometimes decisions have to be made, like in this case, that costs some money.
Right.
But it's worth it, because we also knew, as I knew as a business person, what's the value of a lifetime customer. I knew that. I knew how old our customers' average was. was I know how much they ever spent. I know how much they could spend in their life. And believe you me, it was worth spending $2,000 potentially. By the way, no employee ever spent that much. They bought breakfast or did some things like that. Bellman did spend some extra time, got some closing racks and so on. But it created the image that we had, and it created loyalty.
Now, this is the second objective you write about is get new customers. Talk to me about the dangers of running a business and not always being focused on also getting new customers.
Well, there has to, otherwise your customers sooner or later will be all dead. Otherwise, you have to. No, you have to keep on. You have to keep on. Besides that, an organization has to keep on growing, and that means you have to find new customers ongoing. That is an absolute must. Now, we relied, and now I have in our new hotel company, Capella. We don't advertise. We rely totally on word of mouth by our customers, meaning word of mouth that they take back to their travel agencies, etc., and the PR that they're making. And it is totally successful. We don't advertise. It's totally successful. And we rely totally there. But there are other, we rely on other selling means. We go to conventions with travel agents, etc. But so we constantly are very busy, and we measure if our customer base is growing or not. And we expect our customer base to grow in each hotel consistently. So we make sure that happens.
Now, objective number 3 you write about is you want to encourage the customers to spend as much as possible, but without sabotaging rule number 1.
That's correct. Now, what we meant with that, I said before, flippantly, to make sure the customer spends as much as possible. That is misunderstood, of course, when somebody hears that. We were saying we should be so good that the customer is willing to pay more for our hotels than for another hotel room. That's how good we should be. And we know that if we accomplish point 1, loyalty, in that moment the guest will buy more from us. In that moment, the guest says they feel so trusting the organization that if we don't have to go out for dinner somewhere else, I'm sure food in this hotel is good. And this is good for any business. Once they trust you, they will buy other products from you. That's why this point number 1 is so important. It impacts I try to make a statement there that number 1 impacts the financial.
Now, you wrote here objective number 4. You said, in all of the above, keep working towards more and more efficiency. I'd like for you to talk more about that.
Yeah, well, there is, and particularly in my business, and I believe that's true in every business, everybody talks about saving money, of course, and that is rightly so. But unfortunately, it's often done by taking away value from the customer. I have seen enough hotels that all of a sudden the soap in the bathroom becomes a little smaller. And of course, the manager gets applauded because he makes more money suddenly. The flowers are gone from the table. The piano is not playing in the afternoon anymore. That is cost cutting. That is not efficiency. Taking away from the guest in order to make, or from the customer in order to make more money is cost cutting, and it sooner or later will destroy you because it will hurt your name and your organization. Efficiency is something else. Efficiency is finding how you can save money from yourself. Meaning, if I can improve my work process to give you a given service without taking away from you, that means I find time, I find how to do it more efficiently, I eliminate mistakes. That's the key piece, to find the mistakes in the organization and eliminate them permanently, one by one. Because every time, think about this is beautiful. Every time you eliminate a mistake, you really improve your product and you lower your cost. Now, that is efficiency. And a great organization is constantly trying to find the smallest mistake, find the root cause, eliminate it so that mistake will never, ever happen again. And that in that moment, you have a better organization for everybody, and you save money.
Horst, I don't know what to get a guy who's been the founder of a hotel chain, so I'm going to give you 1 mega point and 1 knowledge bomb. Okay, now we move on. So you talk in your book, you write in your book, you write, repetition is a good thing. Now you write in your book, repetition is a good thing. Proverbs 10:4 in the Bible says that God blesses the diligent. Diligence means the steady application of effort, a.k.a. consistency. Repetition freaks a lot of people out, my friend. Why is repetition a good thing?
Well, I'm in my book. I'm talking about mainly for the teaching of your organization, because in a way it is a typical thing of management. We tell employees in the beginning when they come what should be done, and then we believe that they know that forever, which is of course ludicrous. They don't know it forever. I don't remember everything was told in the beginning when I worked somewhere. So how you cannot do that. But we identify, and that's what I'm explaining, that we identify really the most important things in our organization. And we teach that the first day an employee starts. And then we repeat them. There are 24 points, and every day, today maybe point 11. Every day we teach 1 point in every hotel, in every department.
Every day.
One of the points is being taught today, maybe point 11. If you get a complaint, you own it. If you're the waiter and they complain about the washroom, you own the washroom. And you accept it, you forgive, and you make amends. Now, point 11 will come up again in 24 days. And so we repeat these points that are important and differentiate us from the competition.
When do you do this?
Every day 1 point is repeated. Repetition is very good. Well, when some people who rejected it in our company beginning, well, everybody knows that that's kind of silly. So I asked the question of all general managers assembled, because they are the one who rejected it. Does everybody in the room know what Coca-Cola is? Raise your hand if you don't know it. Nobody raised their hand, so you all know it. So the question is, why do they still advertise? Because you have to keep it alive. You have to repeat it. That if it is important, you repeat it. And you repeat it, make it simple, and repeat it, and repeat it, and repeat it.
When do you do the repeating? Is you give a set time every day where you huddle with your team?
Shift, you cannot go to work. Today, point 11, nobody in any hotel of ours, that's Capella in this case, Ritz-Carlton was the same, before every shift, mind you, we are 24-hour business, before every shift, you cannot go in the shift without going through to a 3-4 minute session where that point is repeated and re-explained.
Okay, so I'm starting to get a feel for your commitment to excellence. It's getting very practical. I think for a lot of listeners, we're taking tons of notes, and you can get this, Thrivers, we're just giving you like a 5% dose of the book Excellence Wins. By the way, your book is endorsed by Ken Blanchard, who we just had on the Thrivetime show, the best-selling author of The 1 Minute Manager. So this book is quality reading. Paul Hood with Hood CPAs, you had a question here from Mr. Horst.
I do. Horst, hey, this is Paul Hood, hoodcpas.com. It's a pleasure to talk to you. You don't know this, but you revolutionized my business as a CPA. Back in the day, for years, I was always taught the traditional client service, customer service, guest service, whatever it is. That is one aspect of business. A completely separate part of business is marketing and advertising. And so I rocked along with traditional business, traditional CPA, and then read multiple books. And the way Ritz-Carlton did it kept coming up, that basically that they are one and in the same. That people, the way they're treated and how they feel when they leave a Ritz-Carlton, that's marketing. So it's not only customer service, guest service, but it's also marketing. So was that an intentional thing? Did you start with that, or is that just kind of a byproduct?
Absolutely. We clearly established when the guest leaves, we must, if we asked the guest, what did you like in a hotel, and they said, gee, the food or the room, then we failed. They have to feel good. They have to say it was just overall great. And this way, we want that guest to become an advocate. We want that guest to want to come back and recommend us. And in the case of ours, mind you, you talk on a higher market segment. Many of those guests are not just guests; they're influencers, and some of them control other people. So that's as simple as that. So we said it's absolutely sure that that we are convinced that to us is truly marketing to every single individual.
Horst, I got a follow-up to that. It's not really a question, but just a confirmation of what you're doing. My wife and I were on a cruise one time, and the cruise was okay. They're vetted as being just the high-end luxury, everything you want there. And we got in the middle of this cruise, and my wife said, "You get me off this boat, and you find me a Ritz-Carlton." So we literally, walked off the boat in American Virgin Islands with our suitcases, and they said, "You can't do that." And I said, "Yeah, we are," and spent the rest of our trip at a Ritz-Carlton. So bravo.
Bravo. Thank
Another
you.
mega point for you. Now, sir, I'm going to go, this is going to be kind of our lightning round, where I'm going to fire through questions at kind of a faster pace here. And there are questions, Horst, that some people could say could be a little bit offensive. So let's go with the first scenario.
You wouldn't accomplish that with me.
Well, let's say this. Let's say that you're coaching a leader. A business leader's hired you to consult his business. You came in to speak. And,
I do that quite often.
Well, and then you said this line. You said the line, "Leaders have forfeited the right to make excuses." And they say, internal dialogue, they say, "But my back hurts." And then you say again, I repeat, leaders have forfeited the right to make excuses. And again, they're going, "But I have a headache." Can you talk to me about why leaders have forfeited the right to make excuses?
Leaders have accepted. They have to, in the moment when I accept a leadership role, I accepted to work on accomplishing the objective of an organization. If it is a good organization, first of all, a great organization has objectives which are good for all concerned. That means the investor, the employee, the customer, and society. If you work for such an organization, you have no right, or now comes an excuse right here. That people say, "Well, my organization is not." That's not your decision to make when you're a leader. You have nevertheless accepted that organization's objectives. And in that moment, you have you are responsible for finding solutions to the situations that exist. That's the work a leader does. And, of course, help other people, their employees, to reach the objectives. I don't hire a leader to explain me what is wrong. And it goes in every, if it is the backache or every excuse. And I can never forget having a budget of 68% occupancy in a hotel in Boston at the time, and we made 55%. And I called the leader, and I said, "What happened?" "Wow, the weather in Boston. The weather." You see, he had a great excuse. But he would call it purpose, a reason. He had a good reason. No, I asked him, "Wait a second. What about the Copley Plaza? What business did they have? They were very slow too." Yeah, so tell me, did the guest arrive in the airport and said, "Because it's snow in Boston and cold, I'm not going to the Ritz-Carlton"? It's not so. We have no right to move immediately to an excuse. We have to find solutions. We have to say, "Here's what happened. Here's what I'm going to do next January." That's what has and there is no beauty, there is no reward, there is no pleasure in the excuse. All the rewards lie in the objective.
If you're managing a team, let's say you are managing a team in one of your companies, and you have a manager that oversleeps for a meeting, shows up late, has an excuse, has a reason. Traffic. There's a lot of weather, traffic and weather. How many times do you put up with that before you fire the person?
Oh, I'm clearly, if that happens once, it's absolutely no problem. Of course.
Okay.
Find a solution. How you make sure that it doesn't happen anymore to you. Maybe you have to leave a little earlier, But I understand that can happen, and it once in a great while. But if the grandmother dies every few months, that doesn't work.
Got it. Okay, so if it's like every once a year, maybe once every year and a half,
sure.
but if it's like
Sure.
once a month, that you're gonna move on.
Well, I think somebody, any employee, manager or regular employee, should, if they're good employees, they're earning more, in my opinion, than a salary, than a paycheck. They're earning also the right to make a mistake.
You wrote, "Managers push, leaders inspire." What do you mean?
Sure. Well, if that discussion comes up, I always want to make clear, managers also sometimes run a great business, but then doing it by controlling and forcing and just control mostly in hierarchy. Now, a leader makes sure that his employees want to do the job. That means they're aligned. They want to do the job. They also understand the value to them if the job is done well. That has to be all communicated. A leader knows the objectives are good for all concerned, as I touched on earlier. But the manager doesn't really care about that. And by the way, it's the managers that make usually excuses, not the leaders. The managers are also protecting themselves by saying, even if you ask how will the year be, yeah, it probably will be great, except that there always comes this excuse that hangs around there with managers. But clearly, managers don't really care how it turns out for the employees, as long as the bottom line is forced.
That makes sense. You have said in one of your talks, you said that early on at Ritz-Carlton, you knew that if somebody walked up to the front desk and as long as you greeted them, helped them, checked them in within 4 minutes, they were okay. The check-in time, as long as it took about 4 minutes, it was okay. But now with
under 4 minutes, yeah.
Under 4 minutes. But now with the millennials, it's about 20 seconds. And if they're not greeted in 20 seconds, they're upset. They're afraid of gluten. They're sharing cars, and they're upset if it takes 20 seconds. Talk to me about how you are dealing with that increased demand for efficiency with time with your newest ventures.
Well, we have it all. I mean, I can tell you it is traumatic, the change in time that a great company today does also understands what the customer wants, as we said very early. And the customer really wants three things. Every customer wants the same three things, no matter what you buy. If it is a bottle of water or a hotel stay or a CPA work, it doesn't matter. There are three fundamental subconscious expectation by the customer. And that's number one, that the product is defect-free. It doesn't matter what it is. They want defect-free. Number two is timeliness. And if you buy a bottle of water, don't want to leak. You want it when you want it. And number three, you want the people who give it to you to be nice to you, which is called service then, which I give the special name of service. But the timeliness has become so important with everything, you can destroy yourself as an organization if you're not timely. It doesn't matter what it is. Is that if that is calling Comcast and hang on the telephone for 2 hours, you don't like that company anymore afterwards. It doesn't matter what. But this timeliness demand in people has changed dramatically. And we know, we don't only guess that, we knew if we can check the people in rush hour below 4 minutes, it was okay. Now we know they're getting annoyed after 20 seconds. We know that. So we have to change our processes. We have to maybe even invest some money and have another person work on the front desk during rush hour. We have to change processes. And, of course, equipment, technology, and so on helps a lot. But I assure you, and every business person has to know, mind you, I don't guess those things. We started those things. We have to know that timeliness, if you don't work timeliness, if you deliver, if you cannot, that's why Amazon is so successful, because they deliver in time. That's their real success. And you don't read that. They're talking about all other reasons. That's the success. Timeliness. Bang, you get it. You know it. It's timely. And that is true. And every business person has to say, how can I deliver my product more timely?
I'm not sure. 'Cause I know you're doing speaking events, and you're writing this new book. You wrote this new book, Excellence Wins, and you're staying happily married. You got a lot going on. Are you aware of how nice the hotels that you own at Capella Hotels are? Have you seen these hotels? Horst, have you seen how nice your properties are? Have you seen these?
It's difficult to see it because I always see some things that are wrong.
Well, I mean, now. Can you walk I'm not wanting to do a pop quiz where I'm asking you about every single hotel, but can you share with the Thrive Nation of 500,000 listeners out there about some of the locations you have in your Capella Hotels portfolio?
Well, I can tell you, the closest really is in Europe, in Germany, in Düsseldorf.
Okay.
Breitenbachhof, a Capella Hotel. I mean, it's high quality, great location, fabulous service. By the way, we measure total satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 10. Top box in this hotel is 96% of the guests that leave.
Wow.
And said, top box, I want to come back and want to recommend you.
96%.
96%. I mean, you have to comprehend that. That is such world class. It's mind-boggling to accomplish that in a hotel where the average stay is only 2 nights. In 2 nights, they accomplish that the guest says, I want to come back here. I want to recommend it. And a great hotel in Singapore, absolutely great hotel that is just fabulous and overlooking the water on 24 acres, a former club of British Officers Club, redone and into a modern style. Just fabulous service. If I can give you one service incident, a friend of mine, I didn't know he was there. He was staying in another hotel, and then he checked into the Ritz-Carlton. He walked from his room to a meeting room, and on the way there was a landscaper in the garden. He walked through the garden who said, I hope you have a nice day, sir. And he said, I don't, because you don't have Fox News on your TV. And the landscaper said, what room are you in, sir? And he told him, and he walked on, forgot about it. When he came back to his room, Fox News was turned on.
Oh, wow.
Now, see, that is service, complying to the guest's wishes at all times. And this was not just somebody, that was a landscaper who was pulling weeds out of the garden, whom he told that to.
You know, in Singapore, they have laws where, you know, if you go out there and you spray paint a building or you litter publicly, you know, they can cane you. Do you cane people that won't pick up trash at your Singapore hotel?
I want to sometimes, but I don't.
Oh, okay. Now, for the listeners out there that are wanting to know more about you and your book, Excellence Wins, and where is there a specific website you'd recommend everyone goes and checks out? Or
Amazon, and it's on Amazon, and it can be ordered. It will be delivered starting March 5th.
March 5th. Okay, March 5th, the book is available. If you want to pre-order it, I believe you can do that on Amazon.
Oh, absolutely. Then the delivery day, the first delivery day is March 5th.
Now, I had one more question for you. I know Paul had one more question as well, but I had one more question for you because I'm always curious about the habits and routines of super successful guys like yourself. So I guess it's kind of a two-part question. Throughout your career, when running the Ritz-Carlton, what did the first 4 hours of your workday look like? You know, like what time were you getting there? What time were you getting up? What did the first 4 hours of your day look like?
Well, I usually came in very early and walked the hotel. I walked to the restaurants, the kitchens, and said hello to the people, to the employees area, the laundry, and so on, and just walked it and have connection with the employees. That was the most important. When we were small, we go next thing you go to when you run the hotel now, not the company. I'm talking about the hotel. When you go to your office, you went to your office and looked at the security report from the night before, and all kind of interesting things happened, and you made sure that there was nothing there that you had to follow up on. Because what happened during the night when you were not there? Somebody coming in drunk. Invariably, once a month, somebody locked themselves out of their room naked in the corridor. I don't know what they do in the corridor naked. I have no idea. I still don't know it. They used the wrong door. They obviously want to go to the washroom. So, and those reports are there that you go through that. The next thing, I have a planning meeting for the rest of the day with the steering committee. And then we were then was mail. Then it was mail, answering guest situations, etc., etc., etc. And again, going into the operation again. So to be close to the employees, constantly close to them, constantly control, constantly be available to them. That's a key element in a hotel. And be close to lobby, be close to guests. If there's any guest that has something, try and speak with guests. Be a host. So part of the day you're a business person, and part of the day you're a leader, and part of the day you're a host.
What time did you wake up back then?
Well, I usually was at work before 7, and then went home usually about 7, 8 o'clock. Went back often at 10 o'clock one more time just to make a round.
What time were you waking up? Were you waking up like at 5 in the morning or 6? Or?
Yeah, 5.
Waking up at 5, okay. You're getting to work around 7.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you have a certain book throughout your career that really impacted you?
Well, I tell you, Covey's book, 7 Habits, really impacted me.
Oh, yeah.
That impacted me because I was kind of driven with urgencies. Urgencies are satisfying. I take care or make sure that everything worked out fine today. In fact, I got applauded because there was a big party. They thanked me. And every day the wedding went fine. The check-in of the convention went fine. Everybody's happy. But I didn't concentrate on improving. He really impacted me with the sex station, do also the urgent thing in the future. Really impacted me quite a bit. And lately, I tell you what impacted me lately. That's kind of different, but Bonhoeffer, the book on Bonhoeffer by Metaxas, and the way he tells the life of Bonhoeffer, and what impacted me is because of many letters that are in there from Bonhoeffer himself, I could get into his mind, into soul. What made this man think? What made this man who he was? Thinking totally different than society was thinking at the time, and being right.
Are you discussing, just to make sure that those listeners know the context, you're referencing Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was the German pastor and the anti-Nazi theologian. Is that who we're talking about?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
How was he able to think totally different at the time? And Metaxas wrote a fabulous book about and explained, and I could all of a sudden understand and have this strong feeling of yes. And it is just a different feeling than what I had on other times. Yes, you can do all things with God.
Paul Hood,
you can do all things.
You have a hot question here for Horst.
I do, Horst. Hey, so in society's terms, you are a massive success. You came from nothing and became something. I counsel a lot of people, usually on the financial side, but I hear a lot, to be successful, you have to be a special person. You have to be either lucky or special or something to that effect versus hard work and being consistent. What would you say was the key to your success? Because you did, you climbed the ropes of corporate America and created a name for yourself. Was that because you were lucky? Was that because you were extra special? What would you attribute that to?
Let me answer two ways. First of all, most of the people ask me about the success of Ritz-Carlton. The success of Ritz-Carlton were many good people. Personally, I had, if you have one more minute here, I tell you an epiphany that I had years ago when I came to the United States first. I worked in the Hilton in San Francisco as a room service waiter. And I knew I was a good waiter. I worked in the finest hotels in Europe. In room service, there was nothing, and the waiters there had not even close my experience. And my wish was to be promoted in room service before I go back again to Europe. That was in 1964 and 65. I'm still here, by the way. So my wish was to get promoted to room service supervisor. And I had an in because the manager was German too, and I was a good waiter. Why wouldn't I get it? And sure enough, it became available, but somebody else got the job. And I was so bitter. Now, forgive me what I say now, stupid management and all that things went through my mind. And it took me several months before I admitted to myself that the guy who got the job deserved it more. After I got over my ego, after my pride, he deserved it more. I was late once in a while in the morning. I was very tired because I went out partying the night before. And I was inconsistent. I wasn't always the best. I had the best knowledge because of my background, but I wasn't the best. And I promised myself that will never, ever happen again. I had forgotten. I remembered my first methodology to go to work for excellence. And I had forgotten that. And I said, I will never forget it again. I will never again go to work without creating excellence. And I will always be 5 minutes before everybody else and 5 minutes later. And I will give a little more. That is not difficult. So I did it. And I got one promotion after the other. That was the moment. And I'm seeing... And then remembering, mind you, I was institutional Christian already, but remembering excellent, remembering caring for your people, remembering what my methodology told me. Now, mind you, I was still very young. I was 24, but I still everything came back in my memory. What really is excellence, and I applied it from there on. I made a decision to apply it from now on.
You are a wealth of knowledge, my friend, and I'm honored to have you on the show, and I know our listeners are as well. And we are so excited. And Thrive Nation, if you're out there today and you enjoyed today's show, I would encourage you to go on Amazon today and buy a copy of Excellence Wins, a no-nonsense guide to becoming the best in a world of compromise. Mr. Horst, thank you for being on the show today.
I was honored. Thank you very much for having me.
Chup, it is just awesome to have a guest of that caliber on the show.
Oh, world class.
And I think if, again, we talk about this after every show, but the whole point of this show is that knowledge without application is meaningless.
Right.
And to quote Thomas Edison, vision without execution is...
hallucination.
So, Chup, what is the action step that you think that all the listeners should take as a result of today's show? What's the one action that you got out of today's show?
Well, I would say that you need to be real self-respective about being a leader. I really like the stuff that he had to say about being a leader and not just a manager. So if you're someone in charge, there is a difference between management and leadership.
The action step that I got out of it as well is I think that we got to write down today. We need to write down today how good of a leader are we being on a scale of 1 to 10? Let's rate ourselves there. Let's say if 10 is a Horst Schulze and a 1 is a terrible manager, how good of a manager are we, and what can we do to improve?
Oh, yes.
And the other action item that I thought of during today's podcast that really prompted my attention was this idea that you shouldn't let feelings dictate your commitments or what you do. Once you've committed to your marriage or to your business or to your team, it doesn't matter your feelings. I mean, screw the feelings. Feelings, frankly, don't matter. Feelings should not dictate your actions because feelings are followers of your actions. So if you're feeling right now overwhelmed, you're feeling stressed, the worst thing you could do is spend your whole day hiding. What you need to do is you need to get out there and act in spite of your feelings. We talk about it a lot on the Thrivetime show as well as at our in-person workshops, but we talk about how inaction is the big giant. So many people are worried about, what do I do? Well, just not doing anything is the problem. Inspiration is the reward that you get. Inspiration is the reward, but inaction is truly the giant, and action is your sword.
Right.
Chuck, Also, I think a lot of people might have maybe, you're taking notes, listening to this show. I want to play back that sound clip about feelings one more time.
It's so good.
Because it's so good. I'm thinking about making it into like a remix rap song of some kind.
Well, we don't feel like it. What? This is so unreasonable to even allow that to happen.
Oh, think about that.
You're waiting for feeling. I rather make a decision what my feeling is, rather than make a feeling make my decision.
This is huge.
You make a decision, and then you have to fight the decision. You have to fight against the feelings that try to interfere with your decision.
Chup, and we've made a decision here at the Thrivetime Show that 2019 is going to be the year of sharing.
The year of sharing. Because
the previous 3-4 years, I only asked people to share the podcast at less than 20 times. So if you're out there today and you learned, right, if you learned something today from Mr. Horst Schulze,
yes,
I would encourage you to share today's show on Spotify, on iTunes. You could share the link there. You could go to thrivetimeshow.com, share the link.
Yep.
Maybe share it on Facebook, hashtag us or something. Share it on Twitter, share it on Instagram, but share today's show with somebody.
If you know somebody climbing that corporate ladder or wanting to be a better leader, I know that, you want them to be successful, so this is an absolute must listen.
And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom! Share. If I could turn back time, if I could find a way, I'd take back all the words that had hurt you, and you'd stay. If I could reach the stars, I'd give them all to you. I was something like you used to do. I don't know why I said the things that I said. I don't know why I did the things that I did. I don't know why I just put it higher. That's Cher.